Hello peeps. Today we're going to be talking about ATM weapons. And what I mean by that is the advanced tactical missiles. And to me, these things are like a money machine. They really are. One of the fastest ways that I can scale up is with ATMs. LRMs are a lot of fun, but they have their quirks, their issues. But with ATMs are really nice because they have a lot better range. They have a lot better short range, and they do different amounts of damage at different ranges. And we're going to talk about that coming up. But in the meantime, I'm going to let this guy tell you about what the difference between different ATM weapons are. And this is based on the actual value that the ATM weapons have, regardless of any quirks or air skills added to it. Go ahead and take it away.
The ATM system, where precision meets punishment. In Mechwarrior Online, the ATM, Advanced Tactical Missile, is no ordinary launcher. It's a clan-born monstrosity, a twisted hybrid of SRM brutality and LRM range, but with a cruel sense of timing. ATMs aren't here to scare you. They're here to punish your missteps, systematically, methodically, and without remorse. Think of ATMs like guided shrapnel, a smarter, sadistic cousin of the LBX autocannon, only with missiles. They don't scatter. They choose their target. They find you behind that ridge. They notice you peeking on a wall, and they don't just knock, they detonate. The range of regret. ATMs operate in 3 range bands, each deadlier than the last. Short range, 62-48 meters. You're in the kill box. Medium range, 336 to 470 meters. You thought you were safe. You were wrong. Long range, 500 to 1100 meters. Just enough reach to ruin your day before you realize it. And don't get cute trying to hug me at 30 meters. ATMs don't arm until 60 meters. Inside that range, I'll just let my lasers do the carving. Damage delivery. Here's what each launcher throws at you, assuming you're foolish enough to stay in range. ATM 3, 6 damage at long range, 7 at medium, 8 at short. Death by paper cuts, but they add up fast. 8-6, 12 at long, 13.5 medium, 15 close. A solid fist to the face. 18-9, 18 long, 20 medium, 22 short. The sweet spot between spam and surgical. ATM 12, 24 long, 27 medium, 30 short, a war crime in missile form. Cooldowns, because suffering has rhythm. ATM 3, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. ATM 9 and ATM 12, 5 seconds. Enough time to breathe, not enough to run. Why ATMs make enemies regret logging in. Built-in Artemis, every volley is guided, more accurate, more efficient, more lethal. Lock optional mayhem. You can lock for accuracy, or you can blind fire into shadows, buildings, or sniper nests. Let them wonder why their armor is vanishing. Ammo smart, 1 ammo type, no toggles, no thinking. The missiles adjust damage by distance automatically, like a butler with a grudge. ECM friendly, pair with ECM and fire from concealment, like a ghost with vendettas and warheads. Range control, you hit harder the closer they are. 6 to 248 meters is your execution zone. Don't just poke, punish.
So now that we have a better understanding of what ATMs do and their ranges and their cooldown periods and everything, now we can get on to the main discussion. And the main discussion is it better to run 2 ATM 9s and 2 ATM 3s, or is it better to run 4 ATM 6s? And that's what happened. I came into a match where I did very similar amounts of damage to another player driving the exact same mech with a very similar build. He had ear medium lasers and I had medium pulse lasers. But otherwise, he had 2 ATM 9s and 2 ATM 3s, and I had 4 ATM 6s. Now, initially, I thought, oh, that's ludicrous. Why wouldn't you want to go with the faster cooldown overall of the 4 ATM 6s versus having to wait the 5 seconds on the ATM 9s and 3 seconds on the ATM 3s? It just seemed absolutely ludicrous to me. And I was like, having the 4 seconds, I wait 4 seconds and I can fire a full volley. But it also came back to me as a question because on some of my builds, I'll run 2 ATM 9s and 2 ATM 6s. And it creates a pseudo chain fire because the ATM-6s obviously have a cooldown of 4 seconds, and the ATM-9s have a cooldown of 5 seconds. So with the ATM-9s and the ATM-3s, you get a cooldown also based on this kind of a chain fire effect, where the first volley, all of them go out, and then 3 seconds later the ATM-6s or ATM-3s would fire in both situations. So there is a distinct benefit of that, because 4 ATM-6s are never going to create a chain fire unless you put them in chain fire. And that's one of the reasons I like doing different size ATM weapons or different size LRM weapons, is because you get that faster rate of cooldown. I even have a couple of builds where I'll have two SRM4s and then a bunch of SRM6s, even though I have the ammo amount, because the cooldown on the SRM4s is just slightly better than that of the SRM6s. So there's an effect that's created. And the cooldown period is essentially, I guess, in make-believe, the time it takes to refill the cartridges with new missiles on your mech. So that is the situation. So we're going to be looking at the weapons in actual fire, and we'll be at Rubelit Oasis, and I'll be firing this mech at the targets, and you're going to find something really interesting. The 4 ATM-6s and the other build with the 2 ATM-3s and 2 ATM-9s kill the same mech in the same amount of time at the same distance. It takes 19 seconds. 19 seconds from start to finish, and they're out. I used a timer to time it, stopwatch, and I even ran it again to make sure I was right, because I was like, there's no way. The 4 ATM-6s should kill them faster. But it was actually the same amount of time. Even though the ATM-3s also had the ability to fire more often, you would think that it would create a situation where the ATM-3s could fire maybe a couple more times and it would do more damage. And I think if you had that opportunity to be able to do that over time, over the course of like maybe say 40 or 50 seconds, it would actually end up creating more damage than the 4 ATM-6s could actually fire. Because, once again, the ATM-3s are just firing quicker every time. And if you've ever seen the story of the hare versus the tortoise, you know that as the time goes on, the tortoise gets so far behind the rabbit that he has no hope of ever catching up. By the time he gets to the finish line, the tortoise is barely at the halfway mark. So there's the capability that the ATM-3s, I think, could over time do more damage. And it's one of the reasons the ATM-3s are the most used of my ATM weapons in any of my builds. So anyway, check out these test matches coming up, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But first, let's go to the Mech Lab. So here we are in the Mech Lab, and as you can see, I have this loaded up with the 2 ATM-9s and 2 ATM-3s, and we have a heat management of 1.2. And once again, these have a cooldown of 3 seconds and 5 seconds respectively. And I have the same amount of ammo on here as I would if I was running the 4 ATM-6s. So let's just, for giggles, we'll take these guys out. And we'll go to the 4 ATM-6s. Now this puts my damage at 76. And I have a heat management of 1.13, as I said before. And if you notice, I'm maxed out at 70. So there's no more I can do here. I can't even add an additional thing to get me over that hump to 70. But we'll just call it 70. So I have a heat management of 1.13. So if I revert back to the original, and let's say I went with more armor if I had it available, but in this case maybe I went with more ammo. Even still, with this setup here, once again still having 76 damage, I'm still at a better heat management than I did if I had 4 ATM-6s. But which doesn't really make any sense because it's the same amount of ammo being put down the battlefield. as the 4 ATM6s. So there is a distinct advantage in two places. If you were to run it this way, it's 0.02 cooler than running the 4 ATM6s. And then the other thing is I still have that extra ton that I can use to whatever I want. And in this case, I would go with adding another double heatsink on here. So by adding that double heatsink, now I'm sitting at a heat management of 1.2. And if I remove the laser AMS and the lasers, I actually have a heat management of 1.92, which is stellar. So that is not a bad deal. And that's on this particular mech and this particular setup. So next I'm going to show you in match, or in the test map, the firing of the dual ATM 6s or on each torso, and then of course the 2 ATM 9s and 2 ATM 3s built. And you'll see that it is cooling down the same amount of time, a little bit. But let's just take a look. And I'm going to start the timer now. See how long it takes to kill this mech. Looks like it's going to be over in a second or two. So that took 19 seconds. Here we are testing the alternate build. Once again, it's 4 ATM 6s versus 2 ATM 3s, 2 ATM 9s, and I will start the timer. Interestingly, it takes the same amount of time to destroy this mech using the same amount of damage, even though the ATM 3s have a quicker cooldown time, the ATM 9s have a slower cooldown time. And I think between the two, the reason why it killed in the same amount of time, 19 seconds for both, is because they equal each other out. Kind of like doing a medium test. You take a bunch of numbers, you add them together, divide them by the number that there's there, and that gives you the medium number. That explains that. So in follow-up, as you can see, that the two builds have very similar features to them, and of course the 4 ATM 6s has a better overall cooldown because you can fire all 4 of the weapons after 4 seconds, versus having to wait for the ATM 9s to cool down for that additional second. But it's only 1 second. So it's kind of a pseudo thing that might be important to some people and not important to others. I think honestly I'm going to go with the 2 ATM 9s and 2 ATM 3s from this point on, because I get that extra cooling and I also get that ability to fire those ATM 3s just a little bit quicker more often. And I think in the long run it's going to actually work out that I can do a little bit more damage on the battlefield. I feel very strongly about that. Anyway, I hope you liked